Oh, hello there! So, obviously I'm playing with the green screen still, but I want to share today just a sentence or two from the book Mastery by George Leonard. It's a book I've only recently been making my way through, but really enjoying. And in it, he says that the essence of boredom is to be found in the obsessive search for novelty. Satisfaction lies in mindful repetition, the discovery of endless richness and subtle variations on familiar themes. And I love it. I love it in part because of how much it contrasts with what's been going on in the world around us. With how it increasingly looks like the direction media is necessarily going, as if we have no choice but to go along with it. And how the information that we take into ourselves doesn't have to be the same thing as the information around us. Right? I mean, so often what's going on in our lives is that we feel assaulted by all this content out there, by all the stuff on TV, by all the different things happening on the internet, all the things in the news. And it's up to you how much of that you let into yourself. It's up to you how much you continue to go out of your way, as if we're honest with ourselves, we are still actively doing to a degree, in order to find that novelty. That if you're looking for it, there's an endless supply of it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best thing for you, or for your life, or for anyone. A couple days ago I made a video about impersonal as opposed to personal media, right? I mean, in terms of how meaningful content might be in terms of we know the author of it. And maybe a way to think about this is in terms of that same novelty comparison. There's all kinds of snack foods, junk foods, a million varieties of different types of potato chips and pretzels and tasty snacks and cookies and muffins and things that they sell prepackaged, processed, highly refined in the grocery store. They're easy to prepare, they're easy to eat. In fact, you can probably get 20 of them at a pretty low cost. But if we compare that experience of eating those day after day and the effect it's going to have on us, internally and externally, in terms of how we feel, and we imagine the comparison between that and the food that we can make each other, whether it's for our neighbor, whether it's for our significant other, whether it's a parent for a child, whether it's a child for a parent. When we make it, and we know the source of it, we put a different kind of care into it. We're able to make different kind of compromises and trade-offs because we know that it's not supposed to have to last infinitely long sitting on a store shelf. And I want you to just picture today, when we think about novelty, and the kind of novelty that gets mass-produced by people trying to reach audiences of millions and millions and millions of people, that kind of novelty. What trade-offs get made in order to ensure that that content is going to have a long shelf life? What kind of trade-offs are being made in terms of making sure that that content is going to speak to everyone out there as opposed to the kind of niche that you choose in life? Your interests, your direction, your focus, your wants and desires, your path that you can actively be on, and how differently that looks when you have that repetition through subtle nuances, through changes, but a pattern, as opposed to that constant search for novelty, which is going to keep someone, like I say, no more satisfied than a bag of potato chips, no more satisfied than trying to eat cookies for lunch, right? In a way, the internet is a infinitely deep bag of potato chips. Doesn't mean that has to be what we choose to consume. Plenty of other things, and again, good things happen on the internet. I'm not saying the internet's a bad thing. Don't want to take this the wrong way. This is purely to do with the idea that if it is through the internet, then direct connections to people, right? I mean, obviously, like in GameDev, we focus on games that we build, that we know everyone who worked on it. We were a part of building it, and how different that experience is from something where we go somewhere, we buy something off the shelf, which maybe is highly polished, maybe well produced, right? Or same thing, my college bands I listened to, where I'm sure that the professional musicians on stage and selling tickets did good work, highly polished work, highly refined work, but again, refined think refined sugars, where yeah, it's sweet, but it's so removed from what's real, from what is non-transactionally a part of our lives, and coming to us from people we know, from people we relate to, from backstories that are personal for us, if it's music our friends make. I think that same phase of my life, a lot of music that I listened to was actually, I had to built a whole playlist out of music that in our game club, that was actually my first club now, 12 some years ago, a lot of the game musicians who would make music for the projects also had a bunch of previous music they just made for fun. And so they shared it with us, and that was my music playlist. And how much better I enjoyed that music than something that everyone else in the whole world was listening to, because it was personal for us. We knew the people. So anyway, that's just the connection I want to make today between this notion of mastery from George Leonard, in terms of, again, not just about seeking novelty, but about embracing the kind of things that happen from repetition, from patterns, from something that we choose to engage in over time, and because that's what's going to build up our skills for things like cooking, for things like building games, for things like producing music, for things like writing stories of our own. And that even if the novelty that's out there is incredibly high quality, incredibly masterfully put together, there's something that's lost when we are consuming that novelty as opposed to, even if we could always eat packaged goods and fast food for the rest of our lives, there's value in knowing how to cook. There's value in the experience of cooking for others and being cooked for by others. And that's the kind of angle that only comes from accepting that maybe there's a healthy, happy path to walk in terms of following that repetition, building that pattern into our lives, and deciding that, you know what? We need these things in our lives and we need them well, rather than all these other things poorly. That's the thought for the day. Thank you as always for tuning in. I'll have a video for y'all tomorrow.